The Neo-Educator.
An Autobiography, or The Story of My Experiments with Truth. Chapters 1, 2, and 3. M.K. Gandhi.
Chapter 1: Birth and Parentage. The Gandhis belong to the Banya caste and seem to have been originally grocers. But for 3 generations, from my grandfather, they have been prime ministers in several Kathiawat states. Uttam Chand Gandhi, alias Ota Gandhi, my grandfather, must have been a man of principle. State intrigues compelled him to leave Porbandar, where he was Diwan, and to seek refuge in Junagadh. There he saluted the Nawab with the left hand. Someone, noticing the apparent discourtesy, asked for an explanation, which was given thus: "The right hand is already pledged to Porbandar." Ota Gandhi married a second time, having lost his first wife. He had 4 sons by his first wife and 2 by his second wife. I do not think that in my childhood I ever felt or knew that these sons of Ota Gandhi were not all of the same mother. The 5th of these 6 brothers was Karamchand Gandhi, alias Kaba Gandhi, and the 6th was Tulsidas Gandhi. Both these brothers were prime ministers in Porbandar, one after the other. Kaba Gandhi was my father. He was a member of the Rajasthanic court. It is now extinct, but in those days it was a very influential body for settling disputes between the chiefs and their fellow clansmen. He was for some time prime minister in Rajkot and then in Vankaner. He was a pensioner of the Rajkot state when he died. Kaba Gandhi married 4 times in succession, having lost his wife each time by death. He had 2 daughters by his first and second marriages. His last wife, Putli Bai, bore him a daughter and 3 sons, I being the youngest. My father was a lover of his clan, truthful, brave, and generous, but short-tempered. To a certain extent, he might have been even given to carnal pleasures, for he married for the 4th time when he was over 40. But he was incorruptible and had earned a name for strict impartiality in his family as well as outside. His loyalty to the state was well known. An assistant political agent spoke insultingly of the Rajkot Thakur Saheb, his chief, and he stood up to the insult. The ancient was angry and asked Kaba Gandhi to apologize. This he refused to do, and was therefore kept under detention for a few hours. But when the agent saw that Kaba Gandhi was adamant, he ordered him to be released. My father never had any ambition to accumulate riches and left us very little property. He had no education save that of experience. At best, he might be said to have read up to the 5th Gujarati standard. Of history and geography, he was innocent. But his rich experience of practical affairs stood him in good stead in the solution of the most intricate questions and in managing hundreds of men. Of religious training, he had very little. But he had that kind of religious culture which frequent visits to temples and listening to religious discourses make available to many Hindus. In his last days, he began reading the Gita at the instance of a learned Brahmin friend of the family, and he used to repeat some verses every day at the time of worship. The outstanding impression my mother has left on my memory is that of saintliness. She was deeply religious. She wouldn't think of taking her meals without her daily prayers. Going to Haveli, the Vaishnava temple, was one of her daily duties. As far as my memory can go back, I do not remember her having ever missed the Chaturmas. She would take the hardest vows and keep them without flinching. Illness was no excuse for relaxing them. I can recall her once falling ill when she was observing the Chandrayana vow, but the illness was not allowed to interrupt the observance. To keep 2 or 3 consecutive fasts was nothing to her. Living on 1 meal a day during Chaturmas was a habit with her. Not content with that, she fasted every alternate day during one Chaturmas. During another Chaturmas, she vowed not to have food without seeing the sun. We children on those days would stand, staring at the sky, waiting to announce the appearance of the sun to our mother. Everyone knows that at the height of the rainy season, the sun often does not condescend to show his face. And I remember days when, at his sudden appearance, we would rush and announce it to her. She would run out to see with her own eyes, but by that time, the fugitive sun would be gone, thus depriving her of her meal. "That doesn't matter," she would say cheerfully. "God did not want me to eat today." And then she would return to her round of duties. My mother had strong common sense. She was well informed about all matters of state, and ladies of the court thought highly of her intelligence. Often I would accompany her, exercising the privilege of childhood, and I still remember many lively discussions she had with the widowed mother of the Thakur Sahib. Of these parents, I was born in Porbandar, otherwise known as Sudama Puri, on the 2nd October, 1869. I passed my childhood in Porbandar. I recollect having been put to school. It was with some difficulty that I got through the multiplication tables. The fact that I recollect nothing more of those days than having learned in company with other boys to call our teacher all kinds of names would strongly suggest that my intellect must have been sluggish and my memory raw.
Chapter 2. Childhood. I must have been about 7 when my father left Porpandar for Rajkot to become a member of the Rajasthanic court. There, I was put into a primary school, and I can well recollect those days, including the names and other particulars of the teachers who taught me. As at Porpandar, so here there is hardly anything to note about my studies. I could only have been a mediocre student. From the school, I went to the suburban school and thence to the high school, having already reached my 12th year. I do not remember having ever told a lie during this short period, either to my teachers or to my schoolmates. I used to be very shy and avoided all company. My books and my lessons were my sole companions. To be at school at the stroke of the hour and to run back home as soon as the school closed, that was my daily habit. I literally ran back because I could not bear to talk to anybody. I was even afraid lest anyone should poke fun at me. There was an incident which occurred at the examination during my first year at the high school and which is worth recording. Mr. Giles, the educational inspector, had come on a visit of inspection. He had set us 5 words to write as a spelling exercise. One of the words was kettle. I had misspelled it. The teacher tried to prompt me with the point of his boot, but I would not be prompted. It was beyond me to see that he wanted me to copy the spelling from my neighbor's slate, for I had thought that the teacher was there to supervise us against copying. The result was that all the boys, except myself, were found to have spelled every word correctly. Only I had been stupid. The teacher tried later to bring the stupidity home to me, but without effect. I never could learn the art of copying. Yet the incident did not in the least diminish my respect for my teacher. I was by nature blind to the faults of elders. Later I came to know of many other failings of this teacher, but my regard for him remained the same, for I had learned to carry out the orders of elders, not to scan their actions. 2 other incidents belonging to the same period have always clung to my memory. As a rule, I had a distaste for any reading beyond my school books. The daily lessons had to be done because I disliked being taken to task by my teacher as much as I disliked deceiving him. Therefore, I would do the lessons, but often without my mind in them. Thus, when even the lessons could not be done properly, there was of course no question of any extra reading. But somehow my eyes fell on a book purchased by my father. It was Shravana Petra Bhakti Natika, a play about Shravana's devotion to his parents. I read it with intense interest. There came to our place about the same time itinerant showmen. One of the pictures I was shown was of Shravana carrying, by means of slings fitted for his shoulders, his blind parents on a pilgrimage. The book and the picture left an indelible impression on my mind. Here is an example for you to copy, I said to myself. The agonized lament of the parents over Shravana's death is still fresh in my memory. The melting tune moved me deeply, and I played it on a concertina which my father had purchased for me. There was a similar incident connected with another play. Just about this time, I had secured my father's permission to see a play performed by a certain dramatic company. This play, Harishchandra, captured my heart. I could never be tired of seeing it, but how often should I be permitted to go? It haunted me, and I must have acted Harishchandra to myself times without number. Why should not all be truthful like Harishchandra? Was the question I asked myself day and night. To follow truth and to go through all the ordeals Harishchandra went through was the one ideal it inspired in me. I literally believed in the story of Harishchandra. The thought of it all often made me weep. My common sense tells me today that Harishchandra could not have been a historical character, but still both Harishchandra and Shravana are living realities for me, and I am sure I should be moved as before if I were to read those plays again today.
Chapter 3. Child Marriage. Much as I wish that I had not to write this chapter, I know that I shall have to swallow many such bitter draughts in the course of this narrative, and I cannot do otherwise if I claim to be a worshipper of truth. It is my painful duty to have to record here my marriage at the age of 13. As I see the youngsters of the same age about me who are under my care and think of my own marriage, I am inclined to pity myself and to congratulate them on having escaped my lot. I can see no moral argument in support of such a preposterously early marriage. Let the reader make no mistake. I was married, not betrothed. For in Kathiawad there are two distinct rites, betrothal and marriage. Betrothal is a preliminary promise on the part of the parents of the boy and the girl to join them in marriage, and it is not inviolable. The death of the boy entails no widowhood on the girl. It is an agreement purely between the parents, and the children have no concern with it. Often they are not even informed of it. It appears that I was betrothed thrice, though without my knowledge. I was told that two girls chosen for me had died in turn, and therefore I infer that I was betrothed 3 times. I have a faint recollection, however, that the third betrothal took place in my 7th year, but I do not recollect having been informed about it. In the present chapter, I am talking about my marriage, of which I have the clearest recollection. It will be remembered that we were 3 brothers. The first was already married. The elders decided to marry my second brother, who was 2 or 3 years my senior, a cousin, possibly a year older, and me, all at the same time. In doing so, there was no thought of our welfare, much less our wishes. It was purely a question of their own convenience and economy. Marriage among Hindus is no simple matter. The parents of the bride and the bridegroom often bring themselves to ruin over it. They waste their substance, they waste their time. Months are taken up over the preparations, in making clothes and ornaments, and in preparing budgets for dinners. Each tries to outdo the other in the number and variety of courses to be prepared. Women, whether they have a voice or no, sing themselves hoarse, even get ill and disturb the peace of their neighbors. These, in their turn, quietly put up with all the turmoil and bustle, all the dirt and filth representing the remains of the feasts, because they know that a time will come when they also will be behaving in the same manner. It would be better, thought my elders, to have all this bother over at one and the same time, less expense and greater eclat. For money could be freely spent if it had only to be spent once instead of thrice. My father and my uncle were both old, and we were the last children they had to marry. It is likely that they wanted to have the last best time of their lives. In view of all these considerations, a triple wedding was decided upon, and as I have said before, months were taken up for preparation for it. It was only through these preparations that we got warning of the coming event. I do not think it meant to me anything more than the prospect of good clothes to wear, drum beating, marriage processions, rich dinners, and a strange girl to play with. The carnal desire came later. I proposed to draw the curtain over my shame, except for a few details worth recording. To these I shall come later. But even they have little to do with the central idea I have kept before me in writing this story. So my brother and I were both taken to Porbandar from Rajkot. There are some amusing details of the preliminaries to the final drama, e.g. smearing our bodies all over with turmeric paste, but I must omit them. My father was a diwan, but nevertheless a servant, and all the more so because he was in favor with the Takur Sahib. The latter would not let him go until the last moment, and when he did so, he ordered for my father special stagecoaches, reducing the journey by 2 days. But the fates had willed otherwise. Porbandar is 120 miles from Rajkot, a cart journey of 5 days. My father did the distance in 3, but the coach toppled over in the 3rd stage, and he sustained severe injuries. He arrived bandaged all over. Both his and our interest in the coming event was half destroyed, but the ceremony had to be gone through, for how could the marriage dates be changed? However, I forgot my grief over my father's injuries in the childish amusement of the wedding. I was devoted to my parents, but no less was I devoted to the passions that flesh is heir to. I had yet to learn that all happiness and pleasure should be sacrificed in devoted service to my parents. And yet, as though by way of punishment for my desire for pleasures, an incident happened which has ever since rankled in my mind, and which I will relate later. Nishkulanda sings, "Renunciation of objects, without the renunciation of desires, is short-lived, however hard you may try." Whenever I sing this song or hear it sung, this bitter, untoward incident rushes to my memory and fills me with shame. My father put on a brave face in spite of his injuries and took full part in the wedding. As I think of it, I can even today call before my mind's eye the places where he sat as he went through the different details of the ceremony. Little did I dream then that I should severely criticize my father for having married me as a child. Everything on that day seemed to me right and proper and pleasing. There was also my own eagerness to get married. And as everything that my father did then struck me as beyond reproach, the recollection of those things are fresh in my memory. I can picture to myself even today how we sat on our wedding dais, how we performed the saptapadi, and how we, the newly wedded husband and wife, put the sweet kansar into each other's mouth, and how we began to live together. And oh, that first night! 2 innocent children all unwittingly hurled themselves into the ocean of life. My brother's wife had thoroughly coached me about my behavior on the first night. I do not know who had coached my wife. I have never asked her about it, nor am I inclined to do so now. The reader may be sure that we were too nervous to face each other. We were certainly too shy. How was I to talk to her? And what was I to say? The coaching could not carry me far, but no coaching is really necessary in such matters. The impressions of the former birth are potent enough to make all coaching superfluous. We gradually began to know each other and to speak freely together. We were the same age, but I took no time in assuming the authority of a husband